Whoa, stop the clock. So we're all familiar with Street Fighter 2. It basically started the whole beat 'em up craze, and pretty soon every kid on the block was trying to Dragon Punch you into Kingdom Come. And remember those older kids at the arcade that would always challenge you and beat you in like 5 seconds? They were always like the guys that called Ryu instead. But it wasn't until I learned some Japanese later that I realized they were actually correct. So anyways, if you still don't know how to do a Shoryuken, then buy a shirt with instructions. Heck, even cats know how to Dragon Punch. Actually, it's about time I gave it another shot myself.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get me a chair or something.
Sure brings back a lot of memories. Anyways, I played Street Fighter 2 just a while back and had to really laugh at the graphics. The character profiles look like these bad cutouts, the damage bar is really bland and basic, and there's nothing really polished about the whole game. Of course, at the time it was pretty state of the art. It had parallax scrolling, breakable scenery, and a good soundtrack. The controls were sharp and responsive, and the gameplay was smooth and addictive. A million sequels came out to Street Fighter 2, but by that time I was too busy playing One Must Fall. Alright, let's move on to an NES classic, DuckTales.
In the heart of Transylvania, in the Vampire Hall of Fame, yeah, there's none of vampires.
Whoops, wrong cartoon. Back in 1989, when Capcom actually meant quality, and Mega Man was still a man and not a squealing girl, Capcom released DuckTales, one of the best platformers for the NES. However, there's one thing that really freaked me out about this game. After you talk to one of the characters, they just stand there like mindless zombies. So, what about when you rescue Huey from the Beagle Boy? He just stands there. Wouldn't he at least be happy to be free? The only character that actually does something is Bubba, and all he does is just disappear. Speaking of disappearing, here you jump into a cart with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Like from the cartoon, right? Now watch this. Scrooge bails at the last minute, and Huey, Dewey, and Louie are sent to their deaths. In the cartoon I seem to remember the nephews rescuing Scrooge out of the cart, but I guess in the game it's payback time for all their standing around. DuckTales 2 was released a whole 4 years later in 1993. Unfortunately, a bit too late. By this time the NES was almost dead and most people were focused on the Super Nintendo. Though the game is actually just as good, if not better, than the original. This time there's a lot more uses for your cane, like moving rafts, dragging blocks, and power-ups which let you break or move certain bricks. There's also a ton of secrets, and once again a great soundtrack. Oh, and more characters just standing around. Castlevania 4 is regarded as one of the best Castlevania games. The Mode 7 effects were amazing, even though the system was brand new and the programmers had not yet learned every trick in the book. But how does the game hold up in retrospect? Playing Castlevania 4 again does show some weird inconsistencies. For instance, the controls can be really awkward, especially jumping. Every time precision jumping is needed, you're too busy worrying if you're going to make it. Any other game with good controls, if you stuff it up, you know it's your fault. And when it comes to booby-trapped platforms, now it's just a game of Russian roulette as to whether you make it or not. And take a look at the enemy bar. Why do they show the boss's energy when you're not even near the boss? Castlevania wasn't the only game that did this. When I was a kid and saw this kind of bad layout, I always wondered if you could somehow decrease the boss's energy during the stage. But of course you couldn't. So why was it there the whole time? It didn't make sense. Streets of Rage had a good idea. Let's actually make it show the energy of the guy you're fighting. That makes a whole lot more sense. Right, now we come to the music. The quality of the music? Excellent. The Super Nintendo used a format that I guess is similar to the old mod format used on the PC. A collection of recorded samples are used and played back in a script, similar to MIDI files. But the quality of the tunes? Not so hot. Some of the best Castlevania themes are here, which is great, though most of them don't show up until the end of the game. In the meantime, you have to put up with rubbish like this. Rather than just being okay background music, a lot of the time it's just plain annoying. Still, the game is fun and has some great moments. There's a huge variety of enemies and levels, the whip is great, and the Mode 7 effects are fantastic. So there's talk of a Castlevania movie. Given that Simon Belmont whips candles, walks backwards, and gets barbecued chickens from bricks, it sounds more like a Leslie Nielsen movie. Alright, I'm just messing around, but given most game to movie translations, I'd hate to think how it might turn out.